Hey, what's up? This is David Clayman with IGN Insider, and you are currently watching the video head-to-head for Grand Theft Auto 4 between Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. So to kick off this head-to-head, I'd like to start by saying, and I'll say it at the end as well, that Grand Theft Auto 4 runs extremely well on both Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. It not only runs well, it looks great, it handles great, all of the normal categories that we usually hit up in a head-to-head, it's great in all of them. Now, there are some minor differences, and that's why you come to these head-to-heads, so let me just go down the line and run them down for you. We'll start with the big one, graphics. How does it look? Well, the game looks great on both systems, but it does look different. It's sort of hard to pinpoint how these games are different on each console, but if you've played them both for a very long time, which I have, you'll see the PlayStation 3 has maybe a few more aliasing passes, anti-aliasing passes, so things just generally look smoother on it. It's something that you only notice if you're looking at it side by side, screen by screen, but it is actually noticeable. Also, the PlayStation 3 just runs a little bit better in general, and this is probably due to the fact that a lot of the game is stored on the hard drive. There's actually about a 7-minute and 45-second install when you first boot it up on PlayStation 3, and so this allows it to access the info pretty quickly. So when you're talking about loading times in Grand Theft Auto 4, you're really not talking about any time at all for any given mission. Maybe a short loading time when you start up the game, and then after that, you're just talking about a few seconds here and there. So if there are differences, which there are, and the PlayStation 3 loads a little bit faster in these areas, you know, it's only 1 or 2 seconds, maybe 3 or 4 seconds, but it hardly affects the gameplay at all. However, if you want to put a stopwatch to it, there you have it. The PlayStation 3 has a slight advantage there. Things like brightness, contrast, and the colors, they're also slightly different on both systems. I could be wrong, but according to me, according to Hillary, according to Roper, who have all played the game, the 360 just looks a little bit brighter. It looks like the colors are a little bit more vibrant, maybe, but it doesn't really give it an edge to say that's better or worse. And I should mention that things like brightness, contrast, saturation, these are all sliders that you can adjust inside the game, and the sliders actually have a huge difference on the picture. So no matter what TV you're playing on, no matter what console you're playing on, you're going to be able to adjust your TV and the game to give you a really great picture, meaning the game's going to look great no matter which console you own. Now, there is one major difference between the two in control, and that would be that 6-axis controls are included for the PlayStation 3. Now, what are they included for? Well, you can use 6-axis control for a helicopter. You can use it for a bike. You can use it for a boat. You can use it for the vehicle after touch, which is when you go off a stunt jump. You can give your vehicle a little bit of direction. You can use it for reloading your weapon, and you can use it for darts and bowling in the mini games. Now, each of the things I just mentioned, darts and bowling combined, means that you can turn them on and off separately. So say you just want to use 6-axis for the bike. Well, go ahead. You can do that, turn everything else off, you don't have to worry about it. I should also mention that you can use it for the auto pitch calibration. Now, how does it work for each of these things? The helicopter actually works really well. You're able to steer a lot easier. It kind of feels like it should be the way you control the helicopter. But I should also mention that in every case where you have 6-axis control, you also have the normal controls turned on at the same time. So if you just held the PS3 controller flat and decided to use the analog sticks or the triggers, or whatever you're using to control each vehicle, you can. So you kind of have a combination, which means that you don't have to rely completely on the motion controls. Of course, you can just turn them off completely as well, like I said. The bike, it's a little bit crazy. It feels a little bit like you're driving drunk. I wouldn't recommend it. I crashed and killed myself a few times when I did. The boat feels fine. It's not that sensitive anyways. And the other things like reload, well, you auto-reload if you keep firing anyways. So it is kind of cool to shake the controller up and down when you reload your weapon, but it's just sort of an extra. I wouldn't say that it makes anything that much better. Next, we have the analog sensitivity. Now, I found the analog sticks for driving a little bit easier on PlayStation 3, and I've spent less time on PS3 than I did with 360 since I played through originally on 360, and I still thought that driving was a little bit easier on the PlayStation 3 controller, but that, again, is a personal preference. Next, we have aiming. Now, the auto lock-on system in Grand Theft Auto 4, which you can turn off if you'd like to, so this isn't a huge deal either, has you push down one of the triggers, or the trigger on the PS3 controller or 360 controller, to either lock on or somebody, or if you push down halfway, you go into free aim mode. So it is all about how much distance you have to push down the controller to change how you're aiming. Now, you'll notice that on PS3, you don't have as much room to move that trigger down. So there's a little bit more sensitivity involved when you want to go into free mode, opposed to when you are actually locking onto someone. I found it a little bit easier to judge this distance between the trigger depression on the 360 controller, but considering this is a huge game, you're going to be playing it for a long time, I was able to get used to it on PS3 almost immediately. So that is a difference. Again, not a difference making one better or worse necessarily, but a difference. The final word, which one do you want to have, which one do you want to own and love? Well, let me tell you, this comes down to a different category than we normally have in these head-to-heads. This one comes down to what are your friends playing. A huge part of Grand Theft Auto 4 is the multiplayer. Now, if multiplayer weren't that great, if it were sort of a side story, if it weren't that fully featured, this probably wouldn't matter as much, but multiplayer is huge. The free mode is a lot of fun. 16 players running around Liberty City, I mean, it's a blast. So you're probably going to be with your friends. You're probably going to want to hang out in Liberty City with people you know. So if your friends are all getting one on a certain console, I'd recommend you go and try to get the same version as they are, because you're going to want to play online with them. This is especially true in some of the modes like Cops and Crooks, where this mode, unlike free mode, requires a lot of teamwork. It requires a lot of communication. It requires you to know the people you're playing with. So, oddly enough, aside from all the technical differences, aside from the graphics, aside from the controllers, whichever one you favor, get the version of Grand Theft Auto 4 that you're going to be able to hang out with your friends with. And there we have it. That's the Grand Theft Auto 4 head-to-head. I hope I was able to help a little bit, and we'll see you next time on Insider.